All right, welcome everybody. Today we have a special training, how to shift your sourcing from China to Mexico in 30 days. I'm super excited to have with us an expert on sourcing from Mexico. She has connections with tens, hundreds of thousands of suppliers in Mexico. I'd like to welcome my friend Susana Bermudez. Welcome, Susana. How's it going?
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me, and I'm like very excited to be here with you once more. But
Yeah.
now, like with everything changing, we have to be, like updated with everything that is happening, in order to, help the majority of the sellers that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially right now, I mean, in the whole sourcing and supply chain, ecosystem in e-commerce, it's like things are changing so much faster. I was talking to a friend, um, he has 40 years experience in sourcing. He says like now more than ever, you have to be agile. You have to see how fast you react. And everyone knows, there was some good news on the tariff front. Obviously earlier this week. Trump and China, they came to a 90-day temporary agreement where the tariffs are coming down from 145% from China goods into US down to 30. But after these 90 days, we don't know what's going to happen. Okay. It could
Yeah.
be staying here, it could be bouncing up, could be somewhere in between. That's why smart sellers right now, they got to know how to diversify. And obviously, Mexico, if you're selling in the US, Mexico is right across the border. So I think this is a very good time. I mean, guys, take advantage of the 90 days. Don't just like sit back, right? Now is the time to be aggressive. Um, and I'd like to welcome everybody that is joining us live. If you can't see and hear us, please type in your name and where you're joining us from. I'm in Japan. Susanna, where are you calling from today?
Well, I'm in Costa Rica right now.
Wow.
Rainy Costa Rica right now.
Rainy. Okay. Costa Rica, is it like
Yeah.
an island kind of like, coastal?
No, island. No, people mistake Costa Rica with Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, it's a U.S. territory. Costa
Yeah.
Rica is not an island, but we do have like Pacific and Atlantic Ocean in
Okay,
each
okay.
side.
Please excuse my ignorance in
Uh,
geography, but I'm sure it's a great place strategically in Latin America. Susanna,
yeah, we
um,
are in Central America actually.
Central America. Okay.
Yeah.
So Susanna is an alumni speaker at Seven Figure Sellers Summit. She gave an excellent training on how to source from Mexico. I wanted to invite her back and make this more interactive because I know a lot of you guys had questions. We had like many people that filled out the survey. So I like to make this interactive. So if you guys have any specific questions, please feel free to type in the chat. This is a golden opportunity for you guys to get your top questions answered. We had like several dozen other questions as well that I have. So, but if you guys have questions live, please feel free to drop them in the chat. So just to quickly introduce yourself, Susanna, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became specialized in helping, businesses and sellers source from Mexico?
Yeah. Well, thanks again for the opportunity, Gary, to do this, and I think we're doing this so you guys can take action, whatever it is in the next 30 days. That's what we're trying to do here. Um, a little bit of my background. Like a few years, I was just a crazy girl that was talking about manufacturing in Mexico, and this was before pandemic. Um, and yeah, like I had like many connections with manufacturers because I was working with them, with their sales teams. Um, and then I start, discovering and asking them why you don't want to jump into the U.S. or they ask me, I want to jump into the U.S., but I don't know how to do it. So I started attending to different seminars and shows, like it's those Prosper show. I think that was the first one that I attend, big with all the e-commerce sellers. Um, and I had the opportunity to start connecting with people there and understanding better, the e-commerce world. Um, so a funny story that I thought Amazon was just like a, big store with, like they had everything they sell everything by themselves. I never imagined that it was like people like you and I just trying to, sell products.
Yeah.
So going fast forward to the pandemic, when that hits, um people start calling me because it was like, uh a big demand. The ports were like full of like stock ports with tons of containers waiting. Uh, so with all that cows, like a lot of sellers start like really like switching to their supply to Mexico and also like to Latin America, because we had the opportunity to start working with sellers that are buying now from Peru, from Colombia, from Guatemala, even from Costa Rica. Uh, and I think this is the big second wave for us. We've never been so busy, and
Hmm.
I know that for us, like the first wave was just a big call, wake up call for a lot of people. But now it's more like a necessity in terms of if you want like a stability or you want to reduce some costs, because I think already that there is a lot of misinformation out there
Hmm.
about what can be done in Mexico and what can be done.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We try as much as we can to educate the majority of the people that we can, the sellers.
Yes.
And if you have questions, like this is what we're here for.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. I know there's a lot of misinformation in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, And what about, I know also, I mean, Susanna, you've personally vetted like 10,000 factory suppliers all over Mexico. And, there really isn't an Alibaba that works in Mexico. So I kind of call Susanna like the Alibaba of Mexico just because
I
she
know.
has such a wealth of connections with the suppliers. But also one thing that people don't realize is your connections with the Mexican government. Like, can you share a little bit more about, how these relationships may benefit e-com sellers looking to source from Mexico?
Yeah, and actually, I will say that a few months ago, I just had like a personal like 350 network of manufacturers all over Latin America, the majority in Mexico. But I also been like developing these connections with the government, with different entities that now like it opens up and we're working with them like very closely to not just educate the manufacturers but also I mean to help the sellers to have more options to navigate. The thing is, what I discover is it is really hard for some of the sellers because they call me and they say, Susana, nobody answered the emails, nobody's answering the calls, like I cannot find a website. So they think sometimes that if they don't find a website with the product that they're like uh selling, there's no manufacturers in Mexico that are doing that. I
Right.
will say the amount of manufacturers that had like a website, it's minimum. And if
Mm.
they do, the SEO is
Yeah.
not working.
Yeah.
It's just maybe sometimes it's just something to have there. They don't they don't see it as a tool to be out there or to be well known.
Yeah.
So at the end, that's been our success, um, because we have the connections or we
Right.
know where to find, the manufacturers.
Right.
Um, and again, that's a big advantage of being working with governments for the past, I will say 4 years, like more strongly. Um, and that's how we've been able, sorry, to help a lot of sellers.
Yeah.
Like now
Yeah.
it's big. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I mean that's the way we've been able to help them.
Excellent. Excellent.
And we're eager to help anyone that needs, a direction.
Okay. Excellent. So we're gonna go through kind of a kind of an overview of sourcing from Mexico. We'll cover some essential background and also product specific capabilities. Susanna actually had a video taken at a factory in Mexico with pet dog collars. So you guys will be able to, actually see what a factory looks like. And then we'll also talk about some logistics, supply chain, shipping, and cultural communication, and also some steps to get started. And for those of you guys that stick around to the end, we have another special opportunity that you may be interested in to kind of help you even more sourcing from Mexico. But since there are people joining us live, I'm just curious for everyone joining us on the call, what's your top question right now about sourcing from Mexico? Right. I mean, are you currently sourcing from China? I think this is a golden opportunity. So feel free to either drop your question in the chat so we can get to it, or raise your hand, and we're happy to help you personally as well, Susanna. With Susanna. All right. So Susanna, just to kind of kick things off, with the tariff impact and savings, almost everyone that completed our survey mentioned that tariffs is their number one biggest challenge.
Yeah.
How much can sellers expect to save by sourcing from Mexico versus China with the current tariff situation?
I mean, we still keep like all the products that are like under the USMCA is the trade between like Canada, Mexico, and the US.
Hmm.
Uh, you don't have to pay tariffs. The only product that are paying tariffs is uh like um just like certain metals and aluminum and stuff like that. Uh, but again, like it depends on the composition of the product because even if we are like the entire product just have a few percentage of aluminum, let's say,
Hmm.
you will pay just on that portion of the product, not on the entire product. And that's something that sometimes is mistaken.
Hmm.
That if the product has aluminum, I mean, you have to pay overall like the tax. I mean, the tariff over the entire product. But that's not the case.
Okay. So in like overall the MCA, I think Mexico, Canada, America trade agreement, you don't have to pay any tariff, zero, unless there are certain metals, aluminum, etc. that's exempt. And based on that, it's only like a proportion, you don't pay based on the whole like, FOB cost. It's only like if it's like 30% aluminum, you only tariff on something like that percentage. Is that right?
Yeah, and also we had a case where um, the client asked us to import some parts from the US
Hmm.
uh, and then finish the product in Mexico and then send it back to the US.
Yeah.
So that kind of transactions also, I mean, depending on the manufacturer that we work with, they
Hmm.
have certain certifications with where they don't have to pay any taxes
Yeah.
between Mexico and the US.
Okay.
It's called EMIX because they have an agreement. So end up paying nothing, like
Okay.
on tariffs. So I think it pretty much keeps the same, for Mexico, like
Yeah.
the past years. Well, cars no 25% and the other stuff that it's already there, but it doesn't affect the majority of the products that the people are like
Okay.
selling on e-com.
Okay. Okay. And then the next question I have is kind of like the quality price equation. So one person asked about finding good alternatives to China that are not lagging behind in either quality or price. How does Mexico compare to China in terms of quality and price when all the factors are considered?
I will say this very respectfully, but we've been seeing through the years that what it's produced, not everything for sure, but there is a big portion of the things that are produced in Asia that are like just literally garbage in some
Mm.
of the stuff, right?
Okay.
That's why it's a lot and very cheap, right?
Hmm.
Probably in Latin America, that's hard to happen because it's it's more handmade or tailor made or like it's not this big companies doing the products. And I will say with quality, um I know some people rather see made in Mexico or made in Colombia or made in Guatemala than made in China.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something happened with the fast fashion, like with bigger, you know, bigger brands that were like manufacturing a lot of, apparel in Asia, and
Mm-hmm.
they decided to start manufacturing in Mexico. It, and for some of them, it was not possible because even if we have the same process,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but that time
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have the machinery and all that to make it as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that we have great quality, and that's just because I'm from Latin America, but we have great quality
Mm-hmm.
in in things like leather stuff, with with also like ceramics and um, even the textiles. Like we have Pima in Peru, we have cotton. Um, I mean, the raw materials that we can find in Latin America are very good raw materials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think we have great quality, and I'm pretty sure we do great stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
we don't do it like in thousands and thousands and thousands of
Right, right.
units a day, but for sure we can compete on quality.
Okay. How about the pricing? Let's say like for the same, like pet collar, for example, manufactured in Mexico versus China, how would that look like?
Yeah, it's very competitive. You will
Mm-hmm.
be surprised how competitive it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because right now, well, first Mexico is the first, like is in first place right now, partnership with the U.S. in terms of uh, exportation, and we've discovered, yeah, that labor is cheaper now in Mexico, right? Uh, and we're getting more automated in some stuff. The reality also is there is a lot of the economy is changing because there's a lot of Asian companies that are
Yeah.
like in Latin America now, in Mexico. So they bring all the technology and they're doing stuff. So there is like a hybrid between Mexican and Asian companies that are doing stuff,
Yeah.
so that it's making like all the manufacturing more efficient. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, but when it's a partnership, it's been working really well. And to answer your question a little bit deeper is on um, pricing, quality, and the overall cost.
Yeah.
It end up like being same or just a little bit high in some of the stuff,
Yeah.
but it's worth it. It makes sense. Um, I
Yeah.
will say that for plastic injection, we're having a lot of success with all the products.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it doesn't mean that in the past, if they didn't produce anything in Mexico, it was because they were not capable. It
Mm-hmm.
was just because they didn't have the demand.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
bringing the demand, and now
Yes.
they're like getting better on the process, and they are understanding. And so that's why I said that the sellers that were like working with the manufacturers 4, 5, 6 months ago, they're selling right now in the US a Mexican product without tariffs, without thinking about like the shipments or
Yeah.
any of the headaches that probably the majority of the sellers have now. But I mean, it is not too late. I think these 3 months that people have, um, yeah, it's gonna be delays. It's gonna be like probably the 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 shipping is gonna go higher.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I will bet that it's gonna go higher.
Mm-hmm.
But the shelves are gonna be stocked by Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a good thing, and it's not a good thing also. But I will say do that, plan for that, but also like find another ways to diversify in case
Yeah.
everything goes back to
Right. Right.
100 or 145.
Okay. And I see there's several questions in the chat about product specific capabilities. Before we get to that, just one other
Yeah.
key factor that, in the supply chain world, obviously we look at the price, we look at the quality, we look at the selection, but also one other factor that a lot of people overlook is the productivity, right? Like how much stuff can a person in Mexico, produce versus the same person in China, right? Like, do you have like kind of a general rule of thumb in terms of productivity, like in Mexico compared to like a China?
Not exactly because we go across many categories.
Hmm.
Uh, so I will say we're not as productive as, China in terms of
Nobody
speed,
is.
some of the
Nobody
stuff.
is. Yeah. Hmm.
So, but I think we're getting there. I mean, I will give you an example. Um, with some of the products that we were like, I was last week in Mexico, and for one of our clients, uh, he decided to go, and visit the manufacturers, um, because he wanted to see what was going on. But I will say that because of the speed that we could provide, because the factory just hire more people to, speed up the production.
Hmm.
Right now, he's selling more.
Hmm.
He's selling more, and weekly we're sending product to the US. So he doesn't have to pay a warehouse. He doesn't have to worry about, like, ordering 3, 5, 4, 6 months in advance.
Hmm.
So he's very happy because he's now comfortable that he can take more business, not just like on e-commerce, but he's thinking about like going to retail. And
Okay.
but he's more confident
Yeah.
because he knows that, I mean, not everybody's gonna be able to pivot to Latin America, to
Yeah. Yeah.
or to Mexico in this case.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the other advantage is the competition, right? Yeah, that's one way that, because a lot of people mention competitors are selling the exact same products. So I feel like this is how you can, create product differentiation, right? Like you're not selling the same thing off Alibaba. Is
So,
that, yeah. So that's what people can benefit from, right? Sourcing
and
from
also I want to
Mexico.
mention something.
Yeah.
There is a few sellers that are like making deals with the manufacturers for
Uh,
exclusivity,
Mm,
I mean, on volume base.
yeah.
So what they're doing is they're locking their product, and they know probably it's going to be very hard for someone else to just manufacture the same thing in Mexico. And that's why, I mean, they're getting those type of deals because it's early, right?
Mm.
And later, I mean, probably next year it will be very different.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge. I mean, you're like, if you guys are like the first movers, like the people that are watching this. I mean, there's opportunity right now because you can lock in those exclusivities. So that way, if your competitor, comes to the same supplier, like maybe 6 months later, it's like, sorry, we can't, we already signed the deal with them, right? So
Yeah,
they're locked out, So that's why right now it's, early, like for, the early bird catches the worm, so to speak, right? Okay,
yep,
okay, I want to talk about the products right now because
for sure.
product range, viability. We've got attendees interested in diverse products from leather goods to home decor to plastic kitchenware, sporting equipment. I see in the chat that David is sourcing ceramic products from Mexico. And there's several others, like Chun said that, okay, let's just tackle this one at a time. I mean, which product categories thrive in Mexico manufacturing, and which ones should sellers avoid?
Look, if it's electronics that are too complicated, maybe that's something that it's not doable right now,
Hmm.
but in the near future will be, just because what I mentioned,
Hmm.
like the Chinese companies are moving to Mexico
Hmm.
and to other Latin American countries to have that ability to start manufacturing those products. Now,
Hmm.
we're starting conversations with manufacturers in Brazil. Brazil is very well known for electronics. So it depends, right? But just that, I will say that's the most complicated. But the ones that you mentioned, like leather goods, like for furniture, like cast iron stuff, I have a list here. So I will say like everything in plastic injection, um, what I would say, acrylic, glass, crystal, kitchen tools, some toys for sure, home decor, apparel, jewelry, um, what else? Ceramics for sure. I don't know if you have any footwear for sure. Um, what else? Do you have any other category there?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so David asked, I'm sourcing a ceramic product from Mexico. I like to source from I'm sourcing a ceramic product from China, excuse me. I like to source from Mexico. So someone like David could they source from Mexico?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. And then Chun had a question. How does Mexico compare when it comes to plastics? I understand that molds from China are still the best and cheapest. How does Mexico compare if I wanted to create a new mold for plastic related goods, please?
I mean, uh, we have a few, again, we have a few manufacturers that already have the ability to produce the molds in Mexico. And what I will say is what they do is they create sometimes just like a sample mold and they use it for like I don't know 10,000 units or 20,000 units. And if the product goes well, they invest in the actual mold. Yes, for sure, like China is still the best for the molds, but I mean, if the overall product at the end is going to be, better for you to do it like to manufacture it in Mexico, we just import the mold from China and and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that, Tim Cook, the head of Apple said that in terms of the number of engineers that can produce tooling and molds, like in the US, I mean, in China, like if you were to put all of them together, they would fill up like 3 football fields. There's so many of those type of engineers to do. But in America, like they couldn't even fill up like a single room that, they were having a
Yeah.
meeting in. That's like, the huge gap, right? With, in
Yeah.
China versus the rest of the world. And yeah,
But
that's
I think
absolutely true. Yeah.
in the very very near future, that's going to happen just because what I said, right? The what the Asian companies are doing in Mexico or in Latin America.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you can import the mold,
Yeah.
Chun, if you need it, you can have it done in China. And Susanna, if someone needed help with that, could you help coordinate that or what?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what we've been doing like for a few years now,
Yeah,
and and I mean, and that's a good thing. Like the manufacturer will take care of the majority of the process, even if they have again, let's think about the machinery that we need in Latin America to manufacture whatever. Every machine probably comes from China or Germany or any of those countries. So
yeah,
we'll still depend somehow on China for those things. But it's something that they've been doing for long time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
also with raw materials, it's not new. Like but again, there's a lot of Asian companies that are doing now raw materials. Some of the, bringing machines to Mexico or taking machines to Mexico to produce the raw materials with the PU. Uh,
yeah,
um, that's one of the examples. There was not like the machinery of the technology or whatever to do the PU. Now they're manufacturing the PU. Some of the manufacturers, right? So it's another component that it's is making easier to have the stock that we need to produce X product, right?
yeah, yeah. Okay. So Chan said, sorry, my question is not about the company investing in the mold if it sells. The tooling cost of a mold from China is 4 times less than Malaysia. So the initial investment is not too high. So the initial investment itself is too high. I'm not interested in importing the mold as I don't want the IP to be leaked in China. How does Mexico compare?
I don't know if I understand
Yeah, Chen, do you
the
want to unmute
Like,
yourself and give us some more background and detail about that?
can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So
hi.
basically, to create a mold in China, it is 4 times cheaper than creating the exact mold in China. Sorry, in Malaysia. Sorry, in Malaysia, right? So my
Yes.
question is, if I wanted to design something from scratch and
Mhm.
do it in Mexico, how does it compare? Because when I approach Malaysian manufacturers, for example, they just said the cost of the mold, that the quote that I get from China is basically their cost. So they cannot even try to create anything for me in Malaysia because it's just too expensive. So
Mhm.
I agree.
yeah,
Well, thank you for your question, and yes, I mean, that's why I mentioned in some cases, if it's a new product and you're not sure about like how much are you gonna sell, or you don't want a lot of inventory, then you can do like a mold that they can do in Mexico, uh, made in Mexico, that it will make just small runs of your product. Okay, that's one of the advantage. And then if you decide, yes, you want to do it like uh, a bigger run, I will definitely say that for the majority of the manufacturers, the mold is not their business. You know, it's not their business. So they probably will quote some of, the manufacturers for mold in China, and they will come with same price, just shipping, of course, and if there's any tariff or whatever, but they don't go like, very high on my experience. What I've seen with the manufacturers that I worked in the past for
Mhm.
some of the plastic injection products. I hope
yes,
that answered your
I don't
question.
think it quite answered my question. So basically, I create my own designs, right?
Yeah.
So I literally design my own product, and
Yeah.
obviously I have to get design engineers to help me create the tooling and the mold, right? Now that itself costs, for example, in China it costs $10,000. If I do it in Malaysia, it's $40,000. That's just for the mold. That's before I even do a production run. So what I'm trying to say is, because the tooling cost is too expensive, um, I still have to stick to China. I'm just wondering if that's the case in Mexico, you know, that I because I mean, for 4 times the price, I could already be making the product, selling, and
Right.
making the product, the production,
Yeah.
and sending it off to
Yeah.
US to sell.
Right.
Whereas I haven't even started at all in
Right.
Malaysia. You know what I'm
Mm.
trying to say?
Yeah. I feel Chun, sorry if I can just interject.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You may
Please.
want to follow up with Susanna like afterwards just to
Yeah,
see, to talk about the details.
yeah.
I'm gonna share Susanna's LinkedIn
Thank you.
and feel free to follow up with Susanna afterwards. I mean, the other thing is you may want to just see if you can, get IP like non-circumvention NDAs and stuff like that. But like that's a whole nother discussion in
Yeah.
itself. But yeah, John, just for the sake of time, I'd like to just keep going. There's a couple other questions we want to get to. Okay,
Yeah,
so
thank you.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I dropped Susanna's LinkedIn. If anyone has any follow-up questions, feel free to follow up. Okay, I wanted to get to Ruben's question next. Ruben says, "Hi, my product has many products in the same box, like a gift set. And my question is, are there mold in case I would like the exact shapes as my current product? Or how does it work usually when your customers want their product made in Mexico, but are not sure if they are the exact same ones?"
um so what it's like, what are you talking about, like the box, it has like something in, like a mold inside
R-
of the box to
Robin, are you
place
able to
the gift
unmute
set?
and just give us some more background about the product and your question? Let's see. Is Robin still here? Um,
Yeah, can you
yes,
hear me?
Robin.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah. So hi, my question was, my product is a bit special as it has, it's like a bundle. It has many products in the same box, like a blanket, popcorn balls, and the shapes are interesting, but it's not very hard product to do. It's just like in China, it comes from like 6 to 7 different factories, and it's
Mhm.
gathered into one box. So I wanted to know how is it this type of product, as you said, there is not Alibaba and all these things to do. Like in China, it's not that expensive with the sourcing agent, but I wanted to know in Mexico, how is it?
So if I understand correctly, so you have like a gift box and you have like different like products on the same gift box.
Exactly.
Okay. And when you were saying that all these products are made from different factories in China.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And who put it together? You or someone in China?
Someone in China.
Okay. Yeah, that's just like an assembly. And
Yes.
depending on the quantities and the volume that you have, for sure, there is assembly companies in Mexico that will be able to source all
Mhm.
the products from, from different suppliers, and they will take care of the project. Uh,
Okay.
but it will depend on the type of products that you want to do. We did that in the past. Actually, we help the customer to put together certain stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, and then we just like send it to an assembly and packaging company, and they did everything and send it to the US. So depending on the product, if you come to me and say, it's something that is very complicated, maybe I will need to know the exact components
Yeah,
of
which
the
part
gift
is it?
box in order to help
Mm. Okay. Yeah. I cannot
Okay.
say it in a public, but in a private, it's possible.
Okay. Excellent. Robin, you may want to follow up with Susanna afterwards too
Mm.
about the
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Great. Thanks, Robin. Okay. We have another question for Belinda who asks about what are the biggest cultural differences when working with suppliers in Central or Latin America that you wouldn't know about if you're used to working with Asian suppliers? That's a good question.
Well, I think many, but I will say that what we discover is that in the majority of the cases, uh, the type of communication, if we don't understand how to communicate with the manufacturer in terms of, in Latin America, we're based in trust. Okay. So we like to do business with the people that we trust or we like, right? It's kind of like that. We don't see just transactions. We see like building relationships. And that's the big difference with Asia, I will say, to, Latin America. I will share something that happened a couple of years ago. We did a Discover Mexico sourcing event in in Monterrey, one of the cities in the north of Mexico. And I took 30 Australians to to Monterrey to source, their products. Uh, and, and it was like really nice because we had a mastermind first talking about like all this cultural stuff, and then we had like a little trade show, and then we went to visit the manufacturers. And what happened in some of the cases were that the sellers end up like going to have lunch or to have coffee or just to hang out with the owners of the manufacturers after the event, and after going to the manufacturers, because they invite them and they like them and they were going to do business together. So in the cultural matter, that's what people like, just to make friends, kind of friends, and know that they can work together. I think that's the majority, is because when they don't connect with the seller, because that happened in the past, and that's a big fear of a few, manufacturers. I will put all my time, I will give them quotes, I will try to, make the best price for them, and then they just buy one time. So they probably are like tired of the one-time buyers where they give the best price and all that. So probably that's one of the reasons they try to, get in touch with the person and with the seller, which at the end I think it's a good thing, because if you're planning to have a business for a long time, if you have a good relationship with your manufacturer, now you don't have to deal with, salespeople or with people like, uh, that are not the owner. And that's what happened basically to me, like they are so used to work with me that for, if they are like, they don't know how much, they can produce, or we've been helping them to develop more skills also with, some AI now, uh, to do everything, faster and smoother. And also it's complicated if you don't have WhatsApp. Everybody wants to communicate through WhatsApp. They don't answer emails. They don't answer, well, phone calls if it's through WhatsApp. But that's something that is very particular with with the manufacturers in Latin America. I will not say everyone for sure, because if there is a big manufacturer, it's going to be complicated. But I mean, that's the majority, I will
Yeah.
say.
Okay. Excellent. We only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get through some of the other questions. So, Belinda, I hope that helps answer your question. All right. Let's keep going, Susanna. We had a video that Susanna prepared from the factory in Mexico. Lovely. Could you help to screen share the video, just so we can give people like a flavor of what it looks like?
I mean, and this is just a little video of a process for doing like a dog collar with a bandana. Um, they are producing around 2,000 of those a week, for this customer. I mean, this is not the actual design or anything. They just make this video um, for us to explain kind of the process depending on what the client wants. It could be that sublimation, but it could be like digital printing too. The color was PU, but this client has 20 other SKUs. He's the category is pet supplies. Um, so that's one of the SKUs. The other one, it goes like it's more a bandana with leather color, and it's different. It comes with different accessories. Um, but I wanted to, just show you guys um,
Yeah.
some of the process for this particular.
Yeah.
But and also we have this, and we have like the big factories doing like thousands of units a day too,
Yeah.
depending on, the type of product.
So it looks like there's like multi-step process with this pet bandana, like textile product. There's like a silk screen, there's like cut and sew, and then there's like a heat press transfer, and then they're gluing it on the bandana onto the collar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this case, I mean, it was just one person pretty much
It's
doing
just one
everything.
person doing this.
But they have lines of people like doing this. Like I said, they are doing
Yeah.
like around 2,000 of those um, weekly.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right. Thanks so much. Love. Is there anything else in the video we should see, or should we just continue to our
Um,
question?
maybe just that part where they put like, I mean, they have all the machinery to put like all the, I don't know, what is it called in English? Sorry. But all the, not, it's not hardware, right? Or is hardware?
What is it in
Like,
Spanish?
los ojetes.
I think it's
Well, anyway,
like the
that's the
hardware, the accessories, like the little
yeah, the
like the belt
accessories that they put like
buckles and
for
stuff.
the yeah buckles
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah. My
Yeah, and
my yeah,
that's the last process. The girls just doing like packaging.
yeah, that's cool.
You will see how that product in particular, they
Okay.
use. It's very simple.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's about to end.
Okay.
This,
That reminds me of another question. In terms of like supply chain, like vertical integrations, especially raw materials, those like those type of buckles that we saw in the video, etc. How vertically integrated are Mexican suppliers compared to Chinese ones? Will sellers need to source components from multiple suppliers or overseas?
no. I mean, for this product, there is like one manufacturer for the buckles, but they do it like in Mexico for the buckles, and then of course, I mean, they're not vertically integrated, but we put like the production together. This was
Hmm.
a product that they were used to do like in the past,
Hmm.
not in these quantities, but they were like very used to. That was like they served the national market
Okay.
for kind of those products. So they're very good at what they do in
Okay.
terms of that product.
So sorry. So the raw materials, was it local in Mexico or did it come from
Yeah,
like another? Okay.
no, no.
Okay. Cool.
In
Cool.
that case, the bandana and all that,
Yeah.
everything
Everything's local. Okay.
from Mexico. So yeah.
So how about like in terms of the shipping, like economics? How do the shipping cost, time, logistics from Mexico to US compare from Asia?
Um, like right now, it's I'm not gonna say it's cheaper, but
Hmm.
again, it depends on the distance.
Yeah.
But I will say that for some of the products, in terms of lead times, it's really fast. I mean, for some of the products, they do daily uh, shipments,
Hmm.
and for other that are require like bigger quantities, they're doing weekly shipments. Um, but
How long does it
it's
take?
quite
Is
a
it just
process.
like right across the border? Like what? Like 5 days, 7 days? It's very
No,
fast, right? No.
no. In some of the cases, if we are manufacturing in Monterrey, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
it's one day. It's hours,
1 day
basically,
shipping. That's crazy. From
or
Monterrey.
what, or hours.
Wow.
If
One
the
day or
product is
hours.
ready,
Yeah.
in less than 3 hours, it will be in Laredo. If it's in Monterrey, in less than 3 hours, it will be in Laredo.
Okay.
We
But
have a
how?
client that does
Yeah.
that manufactures
Yeah.
stuff in Monterrey,
Yeah.
and his warehouse is in San Antonio.
Yeah.
In 5 hours, it's in the other side.
5 hours from Monterrey to San Antonio, correct?
Yes, to San Antonio,
Crazy.
Texas, for
Crazy.
example. And
Okay.
then, for some other products, it depends, but sometimes it's like the longest is like a week.
Okay, okay. All right. We're almost out of time. Can you talk real quick about QC, quality control? What's the best way to handle QC when working with Mexican manufacturers, especially for those used to Chinese QC processes?
Yeah. And to that, I will mention that it's very different. I mean,
Yeah.
if you work closely with the manufacturer, you will not need as many as quality control as you need in Asia, because they take care of their client, basically. And probably they're not going to have 10 clients like you
Yeah.
uh, for the same product. So they're very careful on, they have their own quality control. And then we also, if the seller wants, we also can act as their quality control if they don't need certain certifications. But if they
Mhm.
want to hire a third party to do the quality control,
Yeah.
uh, I have some clients that at the beginning they pay, for quality control X amount of money, and
Hmm.
then they decided that they didn't need it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because everything was on time, like the right quality, the everything was like inspected before it leaves the. At the end, they want more business, so
Right,
they
right,
don't.
right.
They're not gonna screw that part just
Right.
because,
Okay, okay. So I want to get to some like really quickly some first steps for exploration. Many sellers indicate they're just exploring. What are the first concrete steps they can take to evaluate if Mexico is the right fit for their products?
um, you can ask me. No, uh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Besides asking
it,
you. Yeah. We'll talk
yeah,
about
no,
that in a
I
minute.
mean, I will say um it's a little hard just to just trying to Google your product itself.
Hmm.
I will say also with the help of ChatGPT, just ask, if your product is made of, this and this material. The ChatGPT will tell you. Probably will not give you, what manufacturers are the good ones, but at least you will have an idea if your product it can be done in Mexico. An idea. Because
Hmm.
in some of the cases, it's if you're not on the field, you will never know that they exist, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
now I'm seeing just Deb is making a question about the textiles. Uh, there are many fabric manufacturers in Mexico, yes. And also like for synthetic, yes, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there
there
are
there
many
is,
textile and many fabric
yeah.
manufacturers in Mexico.
And I'll
And
tell you this.
yeah.
For that there's a lot of assembly companies are in automotive industry in Mexico, right? So sometimes they serve literally BMW, right? They're doing everything for BMW. They're doing like the fabrics to cover the seats of the car and all that. So in the past, I will say that they had to import. I will say right now they imported some, but to serve someone like BMW or Nissan or whatever, they need to have like this like ongoing like the materials.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not a Mexican company entirely,
Hmm.
but at the end the material is there. So
Yeah.
that's what we discover in the past products that we've been like sourcing from
Okay.
some of the
Okay. Excellent. Very quickly as we close out, I mean, for those people that are ready to move forward, they're interested in learning more about working with you. Like, what does the consultation process look like? I mean, what should they prepare, and what sort of investment should they expect for different consultation service levels?
I mean, it's going to depend on the product. If it's already exists in the market, if you don't have to make changes, it depends on how complicated it gets. I'll be very honest, like, but right now we're taking clients that are just like pretty sure that they want to pivot and change their supply chain.
Hmm.
Um, because we have like, fortunately, like tons of work. So we want to focus on the people that it's ready to do it. So the first thing that we will ask is to, contact us first, and then they can feel like an RFQ, so
Yeah.
we can understand how like the product itself, what it is, and then we will do a basic research that is for free,
Hmm.
no charge. But
Hmm.
after that, we will come back with a quote of, you know, because again, if the product is already made and it's very simple, we don't have to charge them as much
Hmm.
because it doesn't have like X amount of components. But if they're not vertically integrated and we need to do that for the manufacturer or make one to take charge of the entire project,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it's not possible. We've been like seeing tons of products that people told the sellers, oh, you're never going to be able to do that in Mexico. I
Yeah.
already tried. They
Yeah.
didn't try it with the right people, maybe.
Mm.
So don't
Mm.
get discouraged if someone told you that it's not possible. We're going to try to help you with, seeing if it's possible or not.
Yeah. And I'm working together with Susanna on helping sellers source from Mexico, and then we put together a survey, like a pre-sourcing for Mexico form. So if you fill out that survey, Susanna will be able to check out your details, and she'll be able to follow up with you. Okay, so I just
Yeah.
put the link to the survey down below, which you can check out. I know we're out of time. Let's just quickly close out. Susanna, I know that you're also preparing a trade show in Mexico later this year. Can you tell us more, please?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the date just because we're doing this with some entities from the government.
Yeah.
Uh, but we think it's going to be probably last week of August or first week of September. We're
Okay.
still not sure,
Okay.
but we're gonna have a mastermind, and then we're gonna have a trade show where you will find like a lot of categories we're gonna put together. It's the first time that this has been done in Mexico. It's gonna be more than 500 manufacturers in the same place. You know, it's gonna be the biggest trade show ever. So we will give you guys more information once we know more.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna do like next month, like a waiting list, because just by word we have like a lot of people interested. So if
Yeah.
you're interested, you can send an email to Gary, and
Yeah.
we will keep you informed. We will keep you
Okay.
definitely informed about like this big
Great.
trade show.
Okay. You can so we have a free weekly newsletter, the 80/20 of ecom newsletter. So if you sign up for the newsletter, we will put the information out coming up next month. And the newsletter is free. And we also have other news related to e-commerce, Amazon selling, supply chain, AI. So I highly recommend you check it out. Okay. We're out of time, guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Susanna, so much for the training today. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did too. Um, What's, I mean, what's your number one recommendation for sellers looking to source from Mexico besides to contact you?
I mean, just like I will say look deeper, and don't step on the brakes. I mean, I think right now it's when it's so much uncertainty, the
Hmm.
people that will thrive are people that
Hmm.
are like curious, at least curious about, and it's a big step that they're here right now, but it's very important if you have the chance to just like a little bit deeper. And if you can go to Mexico, and you can maybe not for the trade show, but just a trip, then you will
Yeah,
find out that it's a very different thing, that it can be like it can be surprising for people what they can find.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I highly recommend you guys follow up the survey link we put down below and also the newsletter to get more information about the trade show. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day ahead. Good luck out there with your sourcing and e-commerce journey. Thanks again, Susanna. We'll see everybody at the next
Thank
session. Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.